Hi everyone, welcome back to Science 9. This week we're going to go over our last lesson of the year, and it has to do with human impact on the four spheres. And we're going to focus on our impact on the atmosphere and how that leads to climate change. So, in our assignment last week, I asked you guys to identify some ways that humans are negatively impacting each of the four spheres. So we're going to start by introducing just a couple ways we're damaging each of the four spheres. So we're going to look at how we're hurting the biosphere and how species are going extinct, how we're polluting the atmosphere, how we're polluting water in the hydrosphere, and how we're drilling into rocks and the geosphere. So to begin with, we're going to start with our impact on the atmosphere. We're going to just briefly introduce how we're leading to climate change. Things we're doing are leading to climate change, smog, acid rain, and ozone depletion. And then we're going to focus on climate change for the assignment as well. So climate change, also known as global warming, um, as humans burn fossil fuels, that releases carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which leads to climate change. And we do that by driving cars, industrial pollution from factories, heating our houses with natural gas, and in a lot of parts of the world, they actually burn coal to get their electricity. Here in BC, we actually get our electricity. It's a much more environmentally friendly way through hydro dams. Still has negative impacts, but not relating to climate change. So the common greenhouse gases are, the big one is CO2, carbon dioxide. Water vapor is another common greenhouse gas. We can't do anything about that. And actually, the Earth has always had kind of a natural greenhouse effect from water vapor in the atmosphere. But methane and nitrous oxide, those are other ways we're adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. So here you see most of the greenhouse gases from human activities, though, is carbon dioxide. So, how does putting carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, how does that actually heat up the atmosphere and lead to climate change? It does that, and there's this great little video, this little Futurama clip, if you want to check it out, this animation. But basically, we get energy from the sun every day. That energy comes in, it heats up the earth, and then eventually it re-radiates back out into space. Think of if you cook something in the microwave, it's really hot, leave it on the counter, it cools down, right? Because it loses that energy and it wants to escape. So that's similar to what happens with the earth. When we put carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, though, it absorbs and blocks some of that heat from leaving. So less heat radiates back out into space, and slowly the atmosphere the temperature starts to increase. So as the temperature increases, that causes global warming or climate change, and that could lead to things like rising average temperature of the Earth, the polar ice caps melting, which causes ocean and sea levels to rise, more severe weather patterns. So if there's a lot more rainfall and floods in some places and more extreme drought in others, as you're going to see in the video, but if it's hotter in parts of the world, more water evaporates. That water can only stay in the atmosphere so long, so it has to fall somewhere. So it leads to more rain falling in some places, and there's only so much water in the world. So if more is falling on some places, then less water is falling on others. Ocean acidification, so the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide and it gets more acidic, which can hurt the sea life in there. Changing climate, so less rain, different weather in some places, different temperature in other places. Species going extinct because of they can't keep up to the changing climate. Forest fires, If the soil gets dried out, there isn't as much rain in the summer and it's generally hotter, that can lead to forest fires. And we've seen an uptick in forest fires in BC a lot of summers. Australia at the start of this year had really bad forest fires, and California has them quite often too. And many more things climate change leads to, but those are some of the major ones. Now, before we start the video, we're just going to go over some ways we impact the other four spheres. So we impact the hydrosphere, kind of tied into the atmosphere, changing precipitation patterns. So more rain in some places, less rain in others. And that also has an effect that could lead to forest fires. Rising sea levels, as the ice caps melt, more fresh water gets put into the ocean, and also the thermal expansion of water as water heats up, the space between the molecule expands a bit, so the water actually expands as well, and that leads to rising sea levels. And just ocean acidification, ocean getting warmer in certain parts, and that's leading to coral reefs dying. And a lot of fish live in coral reefs, and a lot of people in parts of the world depend on fishing and catching those fish from those coral reefs to feed themselves to get protein. So those are some of the ways humans impact the hydrosphere negatively. And also changing ocean currents. So if the ocean currents are dependent on heating, the sun heating certain parts of the ocean, which creates convection currents. So if that changes or more fresh water gets added in certain places from ice caps melting, that could change ocean currents, which will change weather patterns as well. The biosphere, so as the climate changes, that could lead to species going extinct. They aren't equipped, they're not adapted to live in the new climates they find themselves in. And it could also lead to certain diseases or certain predators or parasites moving to places that they haven't been before. So like for example, British Columbia, we're pretty lucky, but if all of a sudden our temperatures warmed up enough and certain parasites and diseases were able to all of a sudden live in BC, we would be faced with those problems too. Other ways humans are negatively impacting the biosphere, overhunting. So we're hunting some species to the brink of extinction, or some are going extinct. And we're also taking away their habitat by cutting down trees to clear land for farming or for cities or wood, for wood products. And lastly, the geosphere. So we're negatively impacting the geosphere. We're drilling in it constantly for oil, gas, minerals. That creates big holes in the geosphere, and that's how we're negatively impacting that. So after seeing how we negatively impact each of the Earth's spheres, we're going to look at something called sustainability. So what sustainability is, it's the ability to sustain something at its given rate. So I'm going to start with an example. Say you're out for a jog and you start sprinting really fast. You wouldn't be able to maintain that speed for very long. Or another way of saying that, it's not sustainable. You wouldn't be able to sustain that sprint for very long. But if you slowly jogged or walked, you could sustain that pace for a lot longer. So how sustainability applies to this unit is energy consumption. So, we use a certain amount of energy on the planet every year, and every year we need to use more and more because the world's population is increasing and third world countries are developing and they're needing more energy now. So the amount of energy we use, it's not sustainable. Like we won't be able to continue using this much in the future if we rely on fossil fuels. So we're going to need to develop more sustainable ways of getting our energy and not rely on fossil fuels, because fossil fuels, they A, will eventually run out, and B, they're leading to climate change. And local First Nation, not just local, but First Nations people around the world have been practicing sustainability for years. So just a couple things I'd like you to think about, and especially after watching this video. So what could you do to reduce your carbon footprint and move more towards sustainability, a sustainable energy source? And what could our population do? And these are just some things to think about, especially after watching the video I'm going to show you. So the assignment for this week is you are going to watch this video before the flood, and then you're going to complete a worksheet with it. I'm going to pull that worksheet up in a second. If you're interested in this stuff and you want some further information, I have some great clips here. This one, The Eyes of Nye on climate change, is a really good one. These two combined, Chasing Ice Trailer and Extreme Ice Loss. These have to do with the world's glaciers melting and shrinking every year. And then this documentary, Renewable Energy, gives some hope. It shows some ways, some energy sources we're looking at that would be more sustainable, that wouldn't be based on fossil fuels. So the assignment for this week is right here. Climate change before the flood. So I have the YouTube link to the movie Before the Flood. It is on some streaming platforms. Netflix just took it down, but it's on other streaming platforms, so you could watch it on there. But if you don't have access to those, you could watch it on this YouTube link here. And this is the worksheet. So Google Doc, I will get you to download this to your computer so you could fill it out, or you could just write out the answers. So there's 2 pages, just they're in order of how the answers appear on the movie. So there's 29 questions, and then there's 2 reflection questions I want you to write down after you've watched the movie. So what are 3 things you can do to reduce your carbon footprint and slow down climate change? And what was the most interesting thing that you learned from this video, and why was it the most interesting? So that's it for this week, and that's our last lesson. Next week is just going to be a little bit of housekeeping stuff. I will get you guys to check the answer keys I've posted, check your work against those if you haven't already. And I just want to thank everyone for it's been a real difficult, unique semester, and I want to thank you guys for bearing with us and logging in every week and trying your best to make this remote learning work as much as possible. And I hope to see you all next year, and I hope things get back to normal. So take care.